The boardroom of Horizon Innovations fell deathly quiet as Elena Vaughn, the steely-eyed CEO, dropped a bombshell that sent shockwaves through the suited executives. "This is my husband, Marcus Reed." A collective gasp echoed as every gaze locked onto the tall, dark-skinned man standing beside her, dressed in the plain navy uniform of a security guard. The same man who'd been silently patrolling the sleek corridors of their Seattle headquarters for months, unnoticed, unremarkable. His broad shoulders filled the ill-fitting uniform, his calm brown eyes betraying nothing as he stood, hands clasped, under the scrutiny of Horizon's elite. No one, not even the razor-sharp Elena, suspected that her contract husband, this seemingly ordinary guard, was a former elite hacker and covert operative who'd once dismantled international cyber-terror networks with a few keystrokes. Now, as unseen enemies tightened their grip around Horizon's revolutionary AI technology, Marcus's buried past was about to erupt, threatening to unravel everything with explosive consequences. Elena Vaughn cut through the glass-walled lobby of Horizon Innovations like a blade, her charcoal blazer and tailored pencil skirt slicing a stark silhouette against the vibrant neon accents of the tech hub. Her heels clicked rhythmically on the polished concrete, each step a declaration of control in a world that seemed determined to undermine her. Employees parted like waves, their hushed whispers trailing her like a faint hum of static. Her father, Nathan Vaughn, had perished in a mysterious helicopter crash just months ago, thrusting her into the helm of Horizon, the company he'd co-founded with a vision to revolutionize artificial intelligence for global good. But his will, revealed in a tense board meeting, carried a clause that felt like a betrayal. Marry to inherit controlling shares, or watch the company slip into the hands of a board eager to reshape it for profit. Elena's jaw tightened as she rode the executive elevator to the top floor, her mind racing. Nathan had mentored her in every facet of AI development, from neural networks to ethical coding, grooming her to lead with integrity. Yet, in death, he'd bound her to this archaic demand, a condition she'd later discover was orchestrated by his scheming co-founder, Victor Thornton. In her office, a sterile sanctuary of glass and steel overlooking Seattle's mist-shrouded skyline, Elena pored over schematics for Horizon's latest AI neural network, her fingers tracing lines of code on a tablet. Her assistant, Clara Nguyen, stood by, pitching potential suitors with the efficiency of a project manager. The VP of Marketing, Daniel Pierce, is single, charismatic, and already vetted by the board, Clara said, her voice crisp. Elena dismissed him with a sharp wave. Too power-hungry. He'd try to steer the company for his own gain. Clara scrolled through her tablet, undeterred. What about James Thornton, the CFO? He's been vocal about wanting to work closer with you. Elena's eyes narrowed, a flicker of disdain crossing her face. Victor's son? His playboy charm and late-night club stories don't impress me. He's too tied to his father's agenda. She swiveled her chair, gazing out at the city's twinkling lights. I need someone with no stake in Horizon, someone who values discretion, someone I can control. Victor Thornton, Nathan's co-founder and deputy chairman, had been her father's closest ally in the early days, a man whose sharp mind helped build Horizon from a garage startup into a tech titan. But Elena sensed a shift in him over the years, his smiles too calculated, his advice laced with subtle barbs. She'd uncovered whispers that Victor had convinced Nathan to add the marriage clause to the will, arguing it would stabilize her leadership and ensure the company's future. The truth, she suspected, was darker. Victor wanted control, and his son, James, was his pawn. James, with his flashy watches and relentless flirtations, had been pursuing Elena since their college days, his charm as polished as it was insincere. At every board meeting, he'd find ways to linger, offering compliments that felt more like strategy than sincerity. "You're carrying too much alone, Elena," he'd say, his hand brushing her arm. She'd sidestep him, her gut warning her of his ulterior motives. Victor's influence loomed larger, his eyes tracking her every move, waiting for a misstep to seize horizon. The weight of the board's scrutiny and James's advances drove Elena to a gritty downtown bar one rainy evening, a dive far removed from Seattle's tech glitter. She chose a corner booth, her usual composure fraying as she sipped whiskey, the burn dulling the ache of her father's loss and the ticking clock of the inheritance clause. Grief and pressure unraveled her iron control, leaving her raw. A man at the bar caught her eye. Tall, dark-skinned, with a quiet strength that seemed to anchor the room's chaos. Marcus Reed sat alone, his faded jacket stretched across broad shoulders, his hands steady around a coffee mug. When she vented, vaguely about her burdens, he listened without judgment, his warm brown eyes steady. "Some problems look impossible until you step back and see the pattern," he said, his voice a deep, grounding hum that cut through the bar's noise. Elena studied him closer. Calloused hands, a faint scar on his temple, a gaze that held depths she couldn't read, like someone who'd seen the world's shadows and chosen to stand in the light. When a drunk patron stumbled toward her, his slurred aggression breaking the moment, Marcus moved with startling precision. A subtle pivot, a quick wrist lock, and the man was on his knees, stammering apologies before retreating. Elena's pulse quickened, not from fear, but from the ease of Marcus's control. "Where'd you learn that?" she asked, leaning closer, the whiskey loosening her guard. Marcus flashed a disarming smile, his eyes guarded. "Just instinct. You pick things up." Their conversation flowed, raw and unguarded, her walls crumbling under his quiet empathy. She spoke of pressure, of loss, without naming horizon, and he responded with simple wisdom that felt like a lifeline. The night blurred into a haze of connection, her vulnerability meeting his steady presence. In a reckless moment, she invited him to her penthouse, their chemistry igniting into a night of intimacy she hadn't planned. As they crossed the threshold of her sleek apartment, Elena's mind screamed caution, but her heart, raw with grief, silenced it. Their connection was electric, a fleeting escape from her controlled world, yet morning brought a jolt of clarity and regret. Sunlight poured through the penthouse's floor-to-ceiling windows, casting Marcus's silhouette against the Seattle skyline. Elena, wrapped in a silk robe, froze as realization hit. Marcus was Horizon's night guard, a man she'd passed countless times without a second glance. Shame flooded her. How could she, the meticulous CEO, lose control like this? Yet, beneath the embarrassment, a pragmatic spark flickered. Marcus, with no ties to Horizon, no ambition in her world, could be the answer to her problem. A husband she could manage, a pawn in her game against the board. Her mind raced, weighing the risk against the opportunity. She'd crossed a line, but could she turn it to her advantage? The thought felt cold, manipulative, but survival demanded it. Marcus, standing by the window, his posture calm yet alert, seemed oblivious to her turmoil. "You okay?" he asked, his voice gentle. She nodded, masking her unease, and steeled herself for the next move. Over coffee, the penthouse air thick with unspoken tension, Elena proposed a contract marriage. 1 year, substantial monthly payments, separate lives, and absolute secrecy. Marcus's eyes, unreadable, held hers for a long moment before he nodded. "One condition," he said. "No background checks beyond my employee file." His tone was even, but a flicker of something, guilt, perhaps, crossed his face. "Everyone's got a past they'd rather bury." Elena, assuming minor debts or a rough history, agreed, her focus on securing Horizon. They wed in a stark courthouse ceremony, Marcus in a borrowed charcoal suit, Elena in a simple beige dress that concealed the transaction's cold calculus. As they signed the papers, neither noticed the figure across the street, snapping photos with a telephoto lens, nor the encrypted message sent. Target's routine has shifted, new player in play. Elena's announcement at the next board meeting stunned the room into silence. Victor Thornton's eyes narrowed, his handshake with Marcus lingering, as if testing for weakness. "A whirlwind romance," he said, his voice dripping with skepticism, his gaze flicking to James, whose forced smile barely hid his irritation. Marcus stood impassive, his face a mask of practiced neutrality. "Sometimes you just know," Elena replied, her hand resting lightly on Marcus's arm, a calculated gesture of unity. The board exhaled, the inheritance clause satisfied, their positions secure for now. But Victor's scrutiny lingered, and James's eyes burned with resentment. Later, James cornered Elena in the hallway, his cologne sharp, his tone oily. "A security guard, Elena. You could have had someone like me, someone who gets this world." She stepped back, her voice ice. "I chose someone I can trust." His smile faltered, but the warning in his gaze was unmistakable. To keep up appearances, Marcus moved into Elena's minimalist penthouse, a sterile space of glass and white marble that mirrored her guarded heart. She set firm boundaries, separate bedrooms, minimal interaction, no interference in her work. Marcus complied without complaint, working night shifts at Horizon, his presence barely a ripple in her world. Elena felt his humility and silent care, and felt less lonely in the empty house, and gradually no longer felt distant from him. "It seems like having him around is good," she thought to herself. Their days settled into a cautious rhythm. Elena, buried in code, pushing Horizon's AI to new heights. Marcus patrolling the halls, his eyes scanning for threats she didn't yet see. But his attentiveness began to pierce her armor. When she worked past midnight, a bottle of water appeared on her desk, a post-it note with "Keep going" in neat handwriting. When stress knotted her shoulders, a protein bar materialized in her bag. Marcus asked for nothing, offered no explanations. His quiet care was both a comfort and a challenge to a woman who'd built her life on self-reliance. Her first doubts crept in one evening when she returned early and caught Marcus practicing Krav Maga in the penthouse's living room. His movements were fluid, precise, almost lethal, nothing like the clumsy brawling she'd expect from a guard. Sweat gleamed on his dark skin, his focus absolute until he saw her. He stopped, flashing a disarming grin. "Just staying sharp," he said, but his eyes held a guarded edge. "You don't move like a guard," she replied, her tone sharp with suspicion. He shrugged, toweling off. "Fitness helps on the job." The moment lingered in her mind, a glitch in the image of the simple husband she thought she'd chosen. Trouble erupted at a critical investor conference, where Victor, allied with a clique of skeptical shareholders, ambushed Elena with pointed questions about Horizon's AI scalability. Their goal was clear: undermine her credibility and push for a board vote to replace her. As she faltered, her arguments unraveling under their scrutiny, an anonymous email pinged her phone, a detailed dossier exposing the investors' hidden ties to rival firms, giving her the leverage to turn the tables. She dismantled their objections with surgical precision, securing their commitment, but Victor's parting shot was chilling. "We expect a new AI product by quarter's end," he said, his eyes cold. "Fail, and the board will have no choice but to act." Back in her office, Elena scoured the email's metadata, desperate to identify the sender, but the trail led to an encrypted dead end. Someone was watching her back, and the mystery gnawed at her. The demand for a new AI model consumed Elena. She locked herself in her office, coding through sleepless nights, her health fraying under the weight of the deadline. Marcus became her quiet anchor, his presence a steady hum in her chaotic world. He left notes with her morning coffee. "You're stronger than this deadline." He slipped sandwiches into her bag, his voice soft but firm when she pushed herself too far. "One step at a time, Elena. You've got this." His words, simple yet unwavering, pulled her back from the edge. She began to see him differently, not a tech genius, not a corporate player, but a man whose care made her grueling days bearable. One evening, as he handed her a thermos of tea, their fingers brushed, and she caught herself lingering, her pulse quickening. She shook it off, unsettled by the warmth creeping into her heart. He wasn't the husband she'd planned for, but he was far from useless. The thought surprised her. She was starting to rely on him, and she wasn't sure how to feel about it. As the deadline loomed, Elena's prototype stalled, each iteration crashing under the complexity of Horizon's neural networks. The board's ultimatum hung like a guillotine. Then, another anonymous email arrived. A flawless AI design, complete with documentation that solved her bottlenecks. Suspicion surged. Was this a trap to sabotage her? But with the board breathing down her neck, she had no choice. She vetted the design as best she could, her gut twisting with doubt, and presented it at the next meeting. It was a triumph, the board applauding as the AI model outperformed expectations. Victor's face twisted, his plan to oust her crumbling. James, usually smug, avoided her gaze. But the victory felt hollow. Someone was pulling strings, and Elena hated being a pawn. The launch event was a glittering affair, with tech moguls and government officials filling Horizon's atrium. As Elena delivered her keynote, a hired assassin slipped through the crowd, his blade catching the light as he lunged for her. Marcus surged forward, his body a shield, taking the strike to his shoulder. In seconds, he disarmed the attacker with brutal efficiency. A twist, a strike, and the man was down, unconscious. The crowd froze, Elena's breath catching as her unassuming husband transformed into something else, focused, lethal, in command. Security swarmed, but Marcus vanished into the chaos, leaving her to face questions she couldn't answer. Her mind reeled. Who was this man she'd married? In their penthouse, she found him in the bathroom, stitching his wound with steady hands, blood staining the white tiles. "What the hell was that?" she demanded, her voice trembling with adrenaline and betrayal. Marcus's eyes met hers, calm despite the pain. "I've got some skills," he said, "and you're not safe." Her world tilted. "You've been lying to me since that night in the bar." "Not lying," he said softly, tying off the suture. "Just keeping you alive. There's a difference." Her anger flared, but his sacrifice dulled its edge. He'd saved her life, but at what cost? Trust, already fragile, cracked further. She paced, her mind replaying their night together. The reckless connection, her vulnerability, his steady presence. Had it all been a lie? The thought cut deeper than she expected, stirring feelings she hadn't acknowledged. She pushed them down, focusing on the threat. "Who's after me?" she asked. "Someone inside Horizon," Marcus said. "And they're not done." Victor and James, furious at the failed assassination, escalated their plan. They hired a team of elite foreign mercenaries, to eliminate Elena while funneling Horizon's AI data, critical to national security contracts overseas. Unaware, Elena tended to Marcus at home, her emotions a tangled mess. His quiet strength, his willingness to take a blade for her, stirred something she couldn't name. As she changed his bandages, their hands brushed, and she caught herself lingering, her heart racing. Was it gratitude? Duty? Or something deeper, creeping in unbidden? She noticed the way he watched her, his eyes soft but alert, and for the first time she wondered if she'd misjudged him. He wasn't the corporate ally she needed, but his care was a lifeline she hadn't expected. Late that night, a sharp alarm shattered the silence. Marcus's hidden security system, rigged into the penthouse, detecting intruders. Surveillance feeds showed a dozen mercenaries closing in, their gear marking them as top-tier killers. "We need to move," Marcus said, his voice low and commanding, all traces of the deferential guard gone. Elena's fear spiked, but his calm steadied her. He grabbed her hand, pulling her through a hidden panel in the penthouse wall, leading to a service stairwell. Outside, he slid into a nondescript SUV, driving with expert precision through Seattle's rain-slicked streets, dodging gunfire from pursuing vehicles. His marksmanship was uncanny, taking out tires with silenced shots from a pistol he'd retrieved from a hidden compartment. His Krav Maga was devastating, neutralizing a mercenary who ambushed them at a checkpoint with a single fluid takedown. They reached a safe house in the wooded outskirts, a concrete bunker stocked with encrypted laptops, weapons, cash, and multiple escape routes. Evidence of a mind trained for survival. Inside, Elena's shock boiled into fury. "Who the hell are you?" she shouted, her voice echoing in the Spartan space. Marcus's calm cracked, his eyes heavy with guilt and resolve. "I'm not just a guard," he said, his voice low. He was a hacker prodigy, recruited young into a Black Ops cyber unit that dismantled terrorist networks. A mission gone wrong, his miscalculation costing his team's lives, left him haunted, riddled with PTSD. He'd walked away, drifting as a broken man, until Nathan Vaughn found him on Seattle's streets, offering a job as a guard at Horizon. Nathan saw something in him, never prying, treating him like family. Marcus, grateful, vowed to protect Nathan's legacy, and Elena. The night at the bar wasn't planned. He'd fought his attraction, knowing it complicated his mission. "I didn't mean to cross that line," he said, his voice raw with honesty. "But I couldn't walk away from you." He revealed more. He was the anonymous sender, slipping her the investor dossier and AI designed to shield her from Victor's traps. He'd been investigating Victor and James since Nathan's death, uncovering their plan to sell Horizon's AI to foreign powers. Elena's anger wavered, replaced by a grudging respect and a flicker of something deeper. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked, her voice softer. "You weren't ready to trust," Marcus said, his eyes searching hers. "And I wasn't ready to face who I was." The air between them thickened, their shared vulnerability bridging the gap. Elena's heart pounded, her mind wrestling with the betrayal and the undeniable pull she felt toward him. She'd married him for control, but now she saw a man who'd risked everything for her. Marcus shared his findings. Victor and James planned to transfer Horizon's data the next night, fleeing with billions. The AI, used in government defense systems, could cripple national security if leaked. Marcus had contacted his old agency, who looped in the FBI to intercept the transfer. "We stop them tomorrow," he said, his voice steady. Elena, her resolve hardening, nodded. Together, they spent the night planning. Marcus mapping Horizon's security systems, Elena analyzing data flows to pinpoint the transfer protocol. As they worked, their hands brushed, and Elena felt the spark again. Stronger. Undeniable. She pushed it aside, focusing on the mission, but the warmth lingered. Under cover of darkness, they infiltrated Horizon's headquarters, slipping through maintenance tunnels to avoid detection. Marcus moved like a shadow, taking down mercenaries with surgical precision, silenced shots, swift chokeholds, his movements a blend of instinct and training. Elena hacked the servers, her fingers flying to block the data transfer, her mind sharp despite the chaos. In the control room, they faced Victor and James. Victor's veneer of charm was gone, his eyes cold as he sneered. "Your father was a fool, Elena. He thought ethics built empires. I built this company, and I'll take what's mine." James, pale but defiant, clutched a laptop, the transfer in progress. Elena countered, her voice steady. "You betrayed him. This ends now." As she disabled the transfer, Victor drew a gun, his finger twitching. Marcus dove in front, the bullet tearing into his chest. Elena screamed, her focus shattering as Marcus slumped, blood pooling. Victor lunged for the laptop, but the FBI stormed in, gunfire erupting. James froze, dropping the device, while Victor fell, a bullet ending his betrayal. Marcus's breathing was shallow, his eyes fluttering. Elena cradled him, her voice breaking. "Stay with me, Marcus." He managed a weak smile. "Worth it." As medics rushed in, she clung to his hand, her world narrowing to his fading pulse. For days, she sat by his hospital bed, her heart laid bare. She replayed their moments, the bar, his notes, his sacrifice, realizing her feelings had grown long before she'd admitted them. The contract had been a facade. What she felt now was real, raw, and terrifying. When Marcus woke, his eyes finding hers, she let out a shaky breath. "You lied to me," she said, tears falling. "But you saved me." She tore up their contract, her hand finding his. "This is real now." Horizon emerged stronger, its mission realigned with Nathan's vision of ethical innovation. Elena led with renewed conviction, restructuring the company with transparency at its core. Military contracts continued, but with rigorous oversight to prevent another betrayal. Marcus, his past now a classified record with the Defense Department, took on the role of head of cybersecurity, though publicly he remained a guard, the unassuming husband at Elena's side. Their marriage, once a deal, became a true partnership, sealed in a quiet ceremony under Seattle's starry sky. At the unveiling of the Vaughn AI Defense Network, Elena spoke of her father's legacy. He believed in protecting, not profiting. This network ensures our technology serves those it's meant to shield. Marcus, in the crowd, met her gaze, their shared secret a silent vow. A reporter asked about the network's name. "It's about trust," Elena said, her eyes on Marcus. "Rebuilt from the ground up." In their new home outside Seattle, a cozy retreat nestled in the woods, they balanced work and love. Marcus's security alerts pinged one evening, a new threat flickering on his encrypted laptop, a pattern suggesting Victor's overseas partners weren't done. Elena glanced over, her smile steady, her hand resting on his. "Another mission, guard?" Marcus's grin held unshakable certainty, the shadows of his past no longer a burden. "With you, always."